All right, we're back for our how-to segment, and our how-to today is going to be how to work together. So this is going to be a joint how-to where Kylie and I are both going to be putting into it.
And disclaimer, we don't claim to know everything. We're just going to tell you how we figured it out.
Yeah, this is our conglomeration of 5 years of marriage.
Which is not a lot.
We're newlyweds. We get it. But anyway, first, our random item sponsorship. And we're going to do it a little different today. So we got a bag of random items. Just pull out the first one you touch. No digging around.
There's nothing in the front pocket, dude.
First one you touch.
That's a weak car.
All right, here we have a small.
It's like a Subaru something or other.
What are the Matchbox cars? Here we have a Matchbox car. Do you need small things that make you slip and fall in the night? Do you need to booby trap your house? Have you ever seen Home Alone? Well, you need about 500,000 Matchbox cars. Do you have any slope at all? Do you have an ironing board or a trunk lid or anything that's sloped? Do you need a Matchbox car?
They make noise. They entertain children. You slip and fall on them. They're great.
They can be fired from a slingshot.
Yeah, that's true.
This is the ideal toy. Almost as good as a marble. But it's more directional than a marble.
And they can't choke on it. Kids can't choke on a Matchbox car.
They can choke on the wheels.
Well, yeah, if the wheel was to come off, but like marble, they can just swallow. They can't swallow that.
Don't say can't.
They can't. It's too big.
My wife has just jinxed us with this Matchbox car. So
Oh,
if you need something to either kill a burglar or entertain your child for hours at the expense of your sanity, buy a Matchbox car. 3 for $1. All right, now for the serious part. How to work together. This was originally going to be how to be a man. And the main point I was going to make was to take responsibility. But it crosses because
It applies to both.
it applies to both. When you're working with somebody else, the first thing you need to realize, I believe, and I've been working with people for a very long time, you cannot work effectively with others and play the blame game. When you're working with somebody else and honestly trying to work with them, you will accept responsibility for every single thing that happens under your watch. If you had anything to do with it at all, it's your fault. And that's it. That's your words. That's your
actions.
Your actions. Any actions, right?
Your non-actions.
Your non-actions. Well, I didn't have anything to do with it. Well, you're right. The reaction, then something happens, you didn't touch it, right? You should have. If you'd have been there, it wouldn't have happened. All right? I say that off the bat. Sorry, boss. I dropped the ball on this one. It didn't happen, right? When you're working with your wife, right? Hey, why isn't the house clean, right? Well, I was outside working all day. How was I supposed to clean the house? Instead of saying that, hey, you know what? I should have made some time and gone back and forth a little. You're right. My bad. Right?
Or me. I mean, that applies to the women as well.
But I'm speaking for the men, right? If there is something going on, right, and there's a disagreement, because the challenge to any working relationship is the disagreements.
Yeah.
When you're getting along, there's no need. You're already working well together. So how to work with somebody else is really how to overcome in a disagreement or a dispute. Now, understanding that in a disagreement or a dispute, somebody is angry already. Somebody is already upset. And making sure it doesn't wind up being both of you, right?
A soft answer turns away wrath.
Right. So when they say, why isn't this done? Sorry, my bad. Right? Sorry, my bad. Shouldn't have done that, right? You're probably going to get some kind of sarcastic, yeah, well, you shouldn't, blah, blah, blah. When that person walks away and comes back and calms down, they're going to realize, you know what, that wasn't exactly fair, right? And even if they never come back and apologize, they're going to think better of you for immediately accepting responsibility, right? Even though they know that you weren't responsible, right? Now, hopefully, you didn't marry just some contentious person. so that you have your spouse should be a reasonable person. Hopefully, men, your wife is a reasonable person. So you can have discussions and say, well, why? Now be very careful with your words here. You can use words very cuttingly. We discussed this in the last one. Don't do that, right? You are not karma, right? You can't be saying, well, if they hadn't done this, I wouldn't have done this. If you can't say to your wife, well, if you hadn't done X, then I wouldn't have done Y. So it's your fault.
Or vice versa. I mean, you can't blame your shortcomings on another person. You have to take responsibility for what you did or didn't do.
Why are you drunk tonight? Well, if you had, put out, or if you hadn't been so whatever, then I wouldn't have gone out and got drunk. Right? You can't say that. No, you did that. You went out with your buddies and got hammered. That's on you. Right? Vice versa. The women, you also shouldn't be playing that game. The whole, well, if you had, then I wouldn't have. Or if you hadn't, then I would have.
Yeah.
It's not a good game to play.
Personal responsibility. It's a big thing, and it's something a lot of people don't actually have nowadays.
And it doesn't matter what the other person does. That's the main point. It doesn't matter what the other person does. Take responsibility for what you did. Right? And if that person in that moment is being unreasonable, fully confess and allow it to be in that moment of time that it's entirely your fault. For the sake of peace, if nothing else. Because the rest of that can be worked out when everybody else is calm. And this is it's something a lot of people need to understand, the rational argument. So this is how a lot of arguments go with me and Kylie, right? We'll both be angry. We will both walk away. Then we'll come back at a later time. All right, Kylie, my point of view on this is that we should put the trash can in the other corner of the kitchen so the cats don't knock it over.
Well, I think we should leave it where it is because it fits nicely in the little spot and it's not in the way of other stuff.
But it's always getting knocked over by the cats because it's right there by the shelf. They climb up on the shelf and jump in the trash can and knock the trash can over. If we put it over by the refrigerator where it used to be, they couldn't jump on top of it like that and they wouldn't knock it over so much.
If we put it there, then the fridge door wouldn't be able to open all the way and we'd constantly have to move it every time we want to get in and out of the fridge. Which means usually it would get left in the middle of the floor because it would just be more in the way.
I'm tired of cleaning up spilled, rotten trash and diapers off the kitchen floor. I really want to find a way where we don't need to deal with this anymore.
Well, I think we should leave it where it is until we actually find a way to fix it. We could get a lid for the trash can and the cats wouldn't be able to climb up on top of it and knock it over.
I think they still would. We could get a wider trash can, a small, slightly bigger trash can that wouldn't fall over so easily.
Maybe. That's a possibility.
That's a possibility, right? But when the trash can falls over, grabbing it and saying, oh my goodness, I hate this thing, but throwing it out the house and smashing it with a baseball bat. In hindsight, wasn't a good thing.
You mean like all the chairs you broke?
We don't claim to have always practiced these things perfectly.
Yeah, no.
A lot of things in this house have...
He gets angry and I get manipulative, and that's not a good combination.
And sometimes our yelling arguments go something like this. Why are you breaking things? Well, why are you gaslighting me? That's not a good place to be. Walk away, take responsibility for your actions, and let those conversations when you come back start with, hey, I shouldn't have smashed that.
Or, hey, I shouldn't have said that.
Right. And then start with, this is what is my position, right? And when people, and keep checking your own emotions, right? Because there's going to be a point in time where you think they're not being reasonable, right? Yeah. I don't see why the trash can can't go in the other corner. The doors on the fridge are shorter now because we have a new fridge. I think we should measure it and figure out if it'll fit there.
Wait a minute, are you actually being serious
no,
about the
I'm not
garbage
saying.
can?
I'm just going to keep going back to that.
Oh, okay.
But that would be the argument.
It sounded like you were
and you're saying,
serious.
well, no, I don't think it would open, and I don't want to put it there because it'd be in the way of the cords or whatever, right? And, well, that's not real. Well, the cords we can move the cords. We can put those devices in other places, right? Mm-hmm. So you're going to want to get, because it's already an emotional situation. That makes sense? Mm-hmm. You need to keep those emotions in check and take responsibility for your own works.
Which is possible. It's very, very hard. It's very, very difficult to do that.
Mm-hmm. But the thing you can't get is cutting and manipulative, or women tend to get manipulative. Guys, I've noticed, tend to get intimidating. We try and intimidate people. So we'll smash something, we'll break something, we'll start. Can't do that.
Well, I think a key spot in that is communication. Because if you do your job and you communicate as a couple, I think half these arguments could be avoided. Which it took us about 3 years to figure that part out.
That's true. But with communication, the things are going to be overlooked. And there's going to be that, oh, I thought I told you that. Right? Like recently, just today, I had told Kylie, and she remembers that I had told her that I was going to start buying ammunition.
Mm-hmm.
And I told her how much, and I told her about how often. Well, then I did it. And now I had told her I was going to do it, but I didn't tell her when I did it, because I thought that telling her that I was going to do it was sufficient. Well, I should have told her, hey, by the way, I bought $50 of ammunition today. Right? Now, we're in a position where it's not that big of a deal, right? So that wasn't something that we thought about. It was like, hey, we just got a notification that your ammo shipped. When did you buy ammo? Oh, well, a couple of weeks ago.
Mm-hmm. However, 3 years ago, that would have been a big deal for us.
Yeah, 3 years ago it would have been. And 3 years ago...
it would have induced a big knockout, drag-out fight.
Right. 3 years ago it would have been, well, why don't you tell me these things? Right?
Yeah.
Well, since then we've grown and we've learned most things that people fight about are really not that important. Right? Now some things are important, and some things you need to sit down and go over. And it's going to seem like a recurring fight, right? It's not a recurring fight. It's that two people are sitting, and for some reason they have opposite points of view on something, and they're very passionate about this. For instance, one of ours was our son, right? I wanted to raise him much more aggressively than Kylie wanted to raise him. I was willing to allow him to do things and act in certain ways that she wasn't. Mainly fighting. I was perfectly willing to, whenever he would be being bullied by his aunts or his uncles or his cousins, to tell him, well, if you don't like it, do something about it. That was me, right? She wasn't willing to allow him to go around and settle his problems with his fists, right? So...
I mean, I do think there is a point where that's necessary, but I want to teach him to use his words first, because a soft answer turns away wrath. I mean...
Right. And so her thing was to, at first, avoid those situations. And my thing was to put him in them more, to teach him to stand for himself. Kind of like a Boy Named Sue situation. That was me. And I'm saying I'm not going to raise a wuss. I'm not going to teach him to avoid conflict. I'm going to teach him to jump into it. And she was saying to teach him to avoid conflict or talk with people, right? That's the thing. 2-year-olds don't talk very well.
They can if you teach them. He talks extremely well.
True, but he mostly talks like this. Don't touch me!
I would still rather he do that than haul off and punch somebody.
True, but the next thing he does is haul off and punch somebody.
Okay, well, we've reached that stage where he knows he has to say something first before he uses his fists. Now the key is actually making sure he says it nicely, but so that he gets the message across, I really don't want to be doing this right now.
Well, see, that was a discussion. As you can see, she was already getting emotional. But that was something we had very long discussions about, right?
Several, in fact.
Several. Over the course of a year. And to the point where she was saying, why are we fighting about this? I feel like we fight about this every week, right? And it took that much, and working out the differences and the little points of it over this point and that, because my main thing was I'm not going to raise a wuss, but I had it in my head that people who walk away from a conflict, right, people who step back from a fight, people who say things like, I don't want to be touched right now, right, rather than just abiding something until the minute that they snap. Somehow I had it in my head that was a sign of weakness, and I wasn't going to raise a wuss. And on the other hand, we're both of our positions now are much less extreme than they were at the time.
Yeah.
Whereas I was not willing for him to be diplomatic. She was not willing for him to be aggressive. So now you can see we've come to this place where we're both agreeing that there's a time for both.
Yeah.
This is a process of years of talking about these things. And there have been other fights about everything you can imagine, from money, marital relations, children.
You're allowed to say sex.
Sex, okay, fine.
You're allowed.
Fighting about money, sex,
food, randomly, but
guns.
Weirdly enough, yeah, food.
Food, yeah. Guns, where to park the car.
How to shut the door.
Whether to back it in or pull it in. We fight about some dumb stuff. Really dumb stuff. But
we're learning how to work together.
We're learning how to work it out. And the thing is, don't be afraid to revisit the issues. If you feel like it hasn't been settled, right?
Yeah, say something.
Say something. Don't just let it fester, because that's how you're going to ruin your marriage, right? Don't just let that sit between you, right? Say something, right? And it can be something as simple as, look, dear, I feel like you should do X more. Well, I feel like that's completely unreasonable. Why is that completely unreasonable?
Yeah.
What makes you feel like that? Well, just the whole thing about it. Let's calm down a little. I feel like it's not unreasonable because of X and Y and Z. What part of what I just said is unreasonable to you?
And then I would usually come back with, well, I think this, and this is, not what we should be doing. And I feel like you want to go this way because of whatever reason.
Let's go with tortillas.
You had to pick one that we still fight about now, didn't you? Okay, for all of you people who don't know, I'm from the deep south. Everything goes on a biscuit, okay?
And I'm from
Eggs,
Texas. Everything
steak,
goes on a
ham,
tortilla.
cheese, everything goes on a biscuit. I moved here, and everything goes on a flippin' tortilla. Why? Biscuits are infinitely better. They taste better. They're fluffier. They have more volume. They fill you up more.
Then why don't
Y'all
you
put
cook,
this on
then
a
why
flat
won't you,
piece of cardboard and call it breakfast.
Why won't you cook either one then?
I do. I bought you tortillas and I cook biscuits. You're welcome.
I feel like tortillas are better because they're less messy.
They're not less messy though. If you make good biscuits, biscuits are just as clean as
Fluffy
tortillas
and
can
crumbly perfection. Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
And
It's
you
infinitely
eat a breakfast
better.
biscuit,
And
you
tortillas.
wear half of the biscuit.
No, you don't. You just keep it in the wrapper. Tortillas are flat little pieces of cardboard that taste like leather.
That you can roll. Not leather. If you buy, just because you overcooked them doesn't mean they're all like rawhide.
Well, say what you want to. My biscuits are perfection.
That's true.
So.
I wish you cooked them more, actually. Like the real biscuits and not these keto biscuits.
I haven't made keto biscuits in a while.
Didn't you make keto biscuits the other day? The last time you made biscuits, those drop biscuits?
No, those are just drop biscuits.
Those are just drop biscuits.
I don't have a lot of counter space to cut and roll, so biscuits are easier.
I'm not saying anything about the drop biscuits. They were amazing, but I thought that because you had been making those keto drop biscuits for so long, that they were the keto biscuits again.
No, they were normal biscuits. You're welcome.
Thank you.
Anyway, I think we're done with this. I think we've pretty much covered everything we need to say today.
Well, it was fun.
It was fun, but we're just rambling at this point.
All right. But now it's just a little...
If anybody from our church is listening to this, feel free to bring it up when we see you next.
Well, I also want to cut in with a little thing, right? This also outlines the basic tenets of manhood, is that you don't always actually need to fight with your fists, right? And to take responsibility for your actions.
Which, just to show you how far Alan's come, that's something I never, ever, ever in a million years thought I would hear him say.
To take responsibility for your own actions and to take responsibility for your own words, and not to try and put that on somebody else and say, I'm just karma. I'm just the consequences of your actions, right? Which is something I've heard a lot of men say. I've said that before. understanding that that's childish, that is the essence of childish, right? And understanding that a man takes responsibility, right?
And a woman. I mean, a woman's...
Understanding that the first sin was theft, and the second sin was a man not taking responsibility for his actions.
But it was two parts. The woman was just as guilty as the man.
That's, well, no, because she was deceived. But anyway, my point is that the first sin was theft, and the second sin was man not taking responsibility for his actions and saying, no, that was me. I should have stopped her from doing that. I shouldn't have let her do that. That, her sin is on me because I knew better. She didn't. I should have stopped her. That's mine. I did that. By not doing that, Adam solidified the first sin, which is why, even though Eve ate the fruit first, the Bible puts all of it on Adam. It's because Adam brought sin and death into the world. So you see that the basic tenets of manhood are to take responsibility. When God said, what happened? Adam said, well, this snake was talking, and I saw it, and I didn't do nothing. I should have done something.
Well, no, at first he said the woman.
No,
it was her fault.
No, what he should have said is, hey, you know what? I saw this thing going down, and I didn't do anything about it. So everything that happened is on me. That's my fault. That's what a real man does. Christ did that for every single person's sin. Christ said, that was me. That's on me. Every bit of that is on me. That's what a real man does. Not what Adam did, which is to say, no, she did it. It's her fault. If she'd had sex with me more often and spent our money better, we wouldn't be in the situation today. So it's her. No, that's not a man does. Nope, it's on me. I fucked it up. I messed it up. It's done.
You're going to have to cut that.
I'm going to have to cut that. I messed it up. It's all on me. Nothing's on her because I'm responsible for what she did because I should have not let that happen. Right? And if you're sitting there making excuses right now, well, you don't understand my position, you don't understand my wife, you don't understand my kids, you don't understand my situation. I don't need to. You're a man. Are you not? You're either a man or you're a boy pretending. So, grab hold of your junk, check it, make sure it's still there. If it is, be a man, take responsibility, and say that's on you. It's on you for letting it get to that place. It's on you for putting yourself in that situation. Now you're in that situation, make the most of it. Start taking responsibility. Turn around and say, well, we're not letting this happen anymore. Is it going to be an uphill fight? Yes, because you've been letting it go downhill for so long. But it's on you. And God's not going to put it on anybody else. So, fix it and get to it. Because everything that me and Kylie just went over, this has been 5 years of both of us doing what I just said, taking responsibility. But it was on me. Me realizing that whenever I would come in and say, be angry, well, why isn't it the way I want it to be? Right? Because I would do that. That wasn't okay. That was on me for causing all that dissension because I wanted it my way. Was it wrong for me to want it my way? Not necessarily. Was it wrong for me to demand that at the expense of peace and then to be a stumbling block to her by causing her to be angry and anxious and depressed all the time? Yes. Now, did she have her own sins that she needed to take responsibility for? Yes. That's none of my business. Mine was mine first. And everything after that was my fault. And that should be both of your perspective. I should come into that with that perspective. And she should come into that with that perspective. And when you both come into it with the perspective that it's my fault and I have to fix it and I'm the only one who can, then you'll actually fix it because it won't just be you anymore to be both of you. But it only takes one of you to start doing that. To always saying, no, it's my fault. I did it. I messed it up. Because it's contagious. Because then the other person will start eventually. It might take you 5 years or 10 or 15, but it will happen.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. I think we're pretty much done.
So be a man. If you're not sure how, I just spent 50 minutes explaining it. Just go back and watch it. Listen to it. Bye.